States of America,
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Clerk Cody.
Supervisor Getting.
Here.
Treasurer Rice.
Here.
Trustee Hauk.
Here.
Trustee Melky.
Here.
Trustee Lannon.
Here.
Trustee Worley. Well, we can see he's here. And then Clerk Cody here.
All right. That brings us to item 4, approval of the agenda. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Did we want to change the a closed session?
I wasn't informed there was any closed session that was in, unless somebody else, was it added at the last minute or?
No, it the talking to the attorney and that, oh, let's see, when was it sent?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
I would support moving that. Do we have a support on the motion?
No, there was not yet, but I spoke up before anybody could.
I'll support it for discussion. But even though I support it, I would encourage that we move closed session up as well in case there's an opportunity and the board so feels moved to go into closed session. And the other comment that I had is item A on our agenda, having to do with budget adjustment or amendment, actually deals with some items that we have yet to vote on, which is items B, C, and D. And it seemed kind of backwards to me that maybe we should move the budget adjustment or amendment beyond items B, C, and D so that you can see whether we approve those or not.
So moving item A to item D and everything up accordingly, B to A, C to
That's
B.
my suggestion. It just made more
B, C.
logical sense.
I would support that.
With that, the motion would need to change if we do that though, right? Because right now it's approving
Just
what was
approving
currently
it.
there.
So Brian, did you make a formal motion on that or was it more?
No, I supported it, but I was, for sake of discussion, hoping that there was support for that and that Bill might be willing to amend the motion.
Yeah, I'll amend it.
And
That makes
I'll take the friendly amendment.
But are we gonna have a closed session too? Because we have to decide whether we're gonna do that before we do item A.
Well,
Well,
that's on our agenda already?
yeah, part of what he had suggested was moving it up
Oh, yes, right.
in that suggestion that he was talking about earlier. So I don't know if that's still in.
Why don't we deal with the new business item first? In the first motion that was made, and Bill, you retracted your initial motion.
Yes.
All right, so we don't have really a formal motion on the new business item. Brian, do you want to make that motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with 2 changes. One, moving closed session up to just behind the public comment and before the report board comments, so that we can minimize the cost of our attorney that's here if the board moves to go into closed session. And then secondly, the other change would be to move item A to item D, and the items B, C, and D would move up to A, B, and C, respectively.
I agree. Support.
So we do have a motion to support the discussion. I guess my only discussion, would it be nice if we planned on having a closed session that it was maybe not such a last minute item. We received correspondence which is fine. But in the past, whenever we've had a closed session, we've had notification that the attorney is going to be present for a closed session. Any further discussion? Okay, so this would be to move item A to item D in new business, moving everything up accordingly, B to A, C to B, and D to C, and also moving item 14, closed session, up to item 8.
Correct.
Any further discussion on this item before we call to vote?
Yeah, just one piece of information. Does anybody have the language for closed session?
I do.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So Clerk Cody, take this to vote.
Cody, yes. Worley,
Yes.
Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Trustee Lannan.
Yes.
Okay, amended agenda, or agenda amended. We move on to item 5, presentations, no public hearings. And so this would bring us to item 7, public comment. This is going to be restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. This is an opportunity for comments only. Questions of the board will not be answered at this time. Looking for hands raised by citizens. Seeing none, we close public comment and we move to item 8, which would be closed session. So we will need to have a motion to go to closed session.
I will move that the board meet in closed session under Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act to consider written material from the township's attorney that is exempt from disclosure by Section 13(1)(g) of the Freedom of Information Act, as well as under Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act to consult with the township's attorney regarding specific pending litigation and settlement strategy in relation thereto.
Support.
Motion support. Discussion. Seeing none, we take this to vote. Clerk Cody?
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Lannan,
Oh, he's muted. Lannon's muted.
if it's a yes.
Mute yourself, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, I just asked you to unmute.
Holler down the hall, Mark.
Just move on to me. That'd be enough to go into closed session anyway.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
where'd he go?
I don't know.
It looks like he turned his screen off for a minute. He's probably going down the hall to see what's going on.
Jennifer?
All right, so motion carries. We move on to closed session. I think we're all set now, right? Everybody's back?
Kind of lost my.
Audio's on?
We're all good.
All right, so let's start off at item 8.
Fine.
And actually, we need to take care of a couple items first, don't we?
Yeah. I would like to make a motion, we approve the recommendation of council for settlement authorization.
It's on the top.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Seeing any discussion? Seeing none, we take this to vote. Clerk Cody?
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Pardon me, I missed what the motion was.
The motion was to approve the recommendation of council for settlement authorization.
Support.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All right. Motion carries.
I would like to make a motion that we increase to authorize an increase in the amount for legal coverage for this case, an additional $5,000. And to keep a cap on that.
I'll support that.
Motion support, discussion?
I'm trying to write it down.
Lannon?
Norm, I missed your motion. It got cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I made a motion that we increase the amount of our legal coverage for this case to the amount of $5,000 and to be capped at that figure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Phil, you supported
Yes,
it.
I supported it.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Lannon?
Norm, just for my clarification, I was hoping you could define a little bit more what you mean by cap.
That we've had previous caps on this. Right now, there is an outstanding amount due, and I'm suggesting that we authorize an additional $5,000 to be paid to this case, but to cap it at that and to reevaluate or to reconsider if should we reach that point.
Thank you.
Trustee Milky? We're not using the blue hands anymore, we're just using our own hands, or what?
Oh, I was going to click.
Without order comes chaos, Mr. Milky.
I was
Raise your
trying
hand
to
in the
vote.
proper manner, sir.
I'm in favor of your motion, Trustee Worley, but I guess, where this goes in the future, I may feel very differently. And I just want to make that clear here.
And I would agree with what you just said. I feel very similar.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sue.
turn it down a little bit. Turn it down.
Okay, we lost Tim again.
He's talking to Jennifer, I think.
He did. Jennifer switched computers.
Didn't we just sit with Lisa? Or Candy just sit with Jennifer? And
Anyways, let's get on with this. Any further discussion? Clerk Cody. It's really hard to, the blue hands, you guys, you make sure you put your participants on and use the hands on the right. It's just too hard to follow hands
Well, I
holding up
can't
like
do
this.
that, no.
There you go. Okay. Clerk Cody,
Now, can you put my hand down when I'm done talking, or do I have to do that?
you have to.
You have to.
Okay, so, did you say we could still revisit this once it, is that what I'm understanding from
Once you
the,
reach the cap, yeah.
Yes. It
Once
can,
it reaches
at
that
that
cap,
point,
we can still
we can
revisit it.
reevaluate. But at this point, $5,000 cap for the current legal fees.
In other words, Trustee Worley, very similar to the motions that we've made in the past regarding the same issue, is once that cap is reached, then it gets revisited, just like we are now.
Correct.
Okay. Further questions? We do have a motion and a second. Seeing no questions, we do take this up for vote. Clerk Cody, you want to do roll call, please?
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon.
Yes.
Did I skip somebody?
Kevin.
Right?
All right, that moves us on to item 8 on the agenda, reports and board comments. Haven't received any applications for any open board positions at this point beyond what we've already had. So we're going to move on to item B, the July monthly activity report. Any discussion on this item at all? No?
It's on the separate cover.
Okay, all right. Planning Commission and ZBA updates by our Community and Economic Development Director, Rodney Nanny.
Well, thank you. Just a few items. The Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet in July. They had no agenda items. They also had received any applications for the August meeting, so the August ZBA meeting is planned to be canceled at this point. The Planning Commission did meet on Tuesday, and they had a very busy agenda. They did hold public hearings on the proposed zoning ordinance update and on corresponding updates to the zoning map that were needed to match with the new ordinance. After the public hearings, they did ultimately decide to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for adoption of the updated zoning ordinance, and also made separate recommendations for the updates to the zoning map. Just for reference, the zoning map updates are necessary because the changes to the zoning ordinance include eliminating 2 zoning districts, one residential, the R5, which is necessary because of it's no longer compatible with state law, and the B6, which is one of the highway business districts, is proposed to be eliminated simply because it's very similar to the B5 and the B7 highway business districts, and was felt to be unnecessary. And so the map changes are to rezone properties are currently zoned R5 or B6. So with that in mind, the proposed zoning ordinance and the map changes will be going to the county for County Planning Commission review, which we expect to happen in August. And after their review and comment period under the State Zoning Act, these items will be coming to you for your consideration. We're looking forward to moving the zoning ordinance forward. The Planning Commission, as the hearings were taken care of per state law, all the notices were provided as required by state law, and we did have a number of comments at the hearing. We also had a number of comments from attendees at our June open house event that was held. The Planning Commission did recommend, as part of the recommendation, did make some recommended changes to that document, in part in response to comments from the hearing and open house, and also some items that they noted that needed to be adjusted. So all of that will be coming to you for your consideration after the county has a chance to make their comments. In addition to the public hearing items, the Planning Commission also had 3 site plans on the agenda. They did take action on all 3. The to grant conditional approvals. And so those projects will be moving forward. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Brian's hand.
Mr.
blue hand
Milky?
is up.
Thank you. I was involved in the planning commission fairly early on in the zoning rewrite, and I remember exploring the R5 and the B6, and just help my memory, and it might be useful for our board to be aware of it too, because I didn't hear you say it, and if you did, my apologies for not hearing it. But in the case of the R5, how many properties were affected by that change? And for those that did exist, what do they change to?
Thank you. I don't recall the exact number of parcels. It was there were two separate areas. I guess we might say two separate neighborhoods that are zoned R5 currently. Both are all or partially subdivided into residential lots, and many are occupied by single family homes. But the exact number of parcels, I don't recall right offhand.
It wasn't many from what I remember, though.
One of the areas is pretty significant. It's
Really?
a large number of lots. Yeah.
Is it mobile home? Is that correct? That it was under the R5?
The R5 is a mobile modular single family district. It's not a mobile home park like you might think. It's it was set up to be a district where modular homes or manufactured homes could be sited on individual lots outside of a mobile home park. And these will be coming before you, but one of them is multiple lots on Berkshire and Glencrist, Jonathan Street, and a couple of others. The second one is 11 total lots the east of Crawford Road. This is a single family residential district, but the problem is that state law does not allow us to discriminate in the way this district does related to the type of single family construction. And so the decision was made, as you said, relatively early on to eliminate this district. The properties are proposed to be put into the R2B district, which is relatively similar in character.
Awesome, thank you. In the case of the B6, that one actually had very few, if I remember right. We had a lot of B5s and B7s, but B6 was the anomaly. And what are happening to those few that are B6s?
Well, there again, we have two areas, both along Pickard Road. One is a fairly large area, and it does again have multiple parcels on both sides of Pickard Road, north and south, that are currently B6. The surrounding zoning in that area is B7, and so those are being proposed to be put in the B7 district, which is another highway business district. And then there's a smaller group of just 3 parcels on the northwest corner of Isabella Road and Pickard that are B6. They are surrounded by B5, which is the highway business district. And so the proposal is put them in the B5 district to match the surrounding.
That's helpful for my reminder, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any further questions at all? Seeing none, we move from item 8 to item 9, the consent agenda.
Did we want to do board member report?
Oh, I'm sorry, board member. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry, item D. Be board member reports. Let's see. I suppose I'll start on my screen, top right, which would be Milton Borough for 200. Brian, that's you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Gunning. I have nothing to report today. Thank you.
Okay. Treasurer Rice.
Just kind of a quick tax update. Everybody had received their tax bills, should have received them by the 1st. I wanted to let everybody know that they can put their payments in the Dropbox. They can mail them in, or we also have our online payment, so they don't have to go anywhere. They can just go make their payment online. Everything can be, printed, everything right from online for easy access. If you go on our website, the uniontownshipmi.com, and that you can click on the link that says bill pay, and it'll take you right to the BSNA website, which you can then bring up your parcel and click on tax information, and that'll bring you right to everything with your tax history. You can print off current tax bills, everything. So just kind of let people know that. Also, I mean, you can take and make partial payments. Someone had mentioned something before, and I've had a couple of questions from people asking, can I make a partial payment? And the answer is yes. You can make several partial payments as long as it gets paid by the due date. So whatever makes it easier for everybody. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of it.
All right. Clerk Cody.
Just a little election information. So far, we sent out 1,232 absentee ballots, and 521 have been returned. That's all.
Wow.
And my computer might turn off. It's been prompting me like every couple minutes, and I keep saying okay, but it might just restart. I have no idea what it's doing. Just so everybody knows, if I disappear, I'll be right back.
I got a question for you on the absentee ballots.
Yeah.
When you receive an application for a ballot, what is your procedures as far as its checks and balances?
We check the signatures to make sure it matches the one on file. If it's a little different, we'll pull out the card, check the card, and then we'll pull other information. And if it doesn't match, then we will contact the voter and say, hey, your signature doesn't match. But we are being very careful when it comes to those.
Very good. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions at all for Clerk Cody? All right. Mr. Hauk.
Yes, I went to a road commission meeting on July 9th, and they approved 2 contracts with us, with Union Township, which are items C and D on our agenda tonight. So we'll see those when they come up, but they've already approved their end of that. They approved several road projects for overlays. I'm not going to get into all those. There's about 8 of those, but all of our gravel roads are completed that I could see. I'm not sure if Lisa's got done yet. Did your road get done yet, Lisa?
It looks different.
Okay, I didn't know if they had gotten to that one yet because they had to use different trucks. But other than that, all of the other roads that we asked them to complete were completed. One
We're gonna walk out there, Lisa, and check it.
Well, I don't know. It's a lot smoother. So either they graded it or they did it. So
They were supposed to put gravel on it.
I believe they
It
did.
looked to me like there was gravel.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looked to me like they had put it on because it looks orange now.
Yeah, it's a lot smoother too.
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions at all for Trustee Hauk? All right. Seeing none, we move to Trustee Worley.
None for tonight.
All right. And we move all the way down to the bottom corner. And Mr. C3775TB001. That's you, Tim.
Oh, I actually have no reports. Just to let you guys know, I'm getting a lot of echoing when I talk,
Yeah.
so it's not real smooth. Thanks.
Is your phone off, Tim?
Yeah.
Wow. Either that or you're radioactive, one of the two. So we had our EDA meeting yesterday. One of the items that we did talk about was some dispersal of some checks. and some concerns that the board had as to the Pickard Street. If you driving down there at all, you'll notice that the north side of the road in particular has looked pretty ratty pretty much all the way through, and it's because obviously construction, but in the construction process, both sides of the road, the main trunk lines, the irrigation lines were both severed. So to give you an analogy, think of water rushing at full speed on a main trunk line with dirt and debris traveling downstream. And on a closed irrigation system where you've got irrigation heads and valves that need to open and shut, that debris causes a huge problem. So the bill to Thielen, and that some of it was startup for the irrigation system in the spring, but it was pushing $10,000. And a good portion of that was repairing, trying to clean out the main trunk lines, trying to clean out the valves, trying to clean out the sprinkler heads. When I talked with Randy Sherrar at Thielen's yesterday, he said they had a controller that they had to replace because of that issue. Also, was down by that Better Homes trailer sales or RV sales on the north side. And they have a couple of zones where they weren't getting any pressure, which means basically that those heads are clogged with debris. So we're going to be looking at probably another couple grand at least in repairs, on top of the fact that we've had Pleasant time hand watering all the flowers and paying him for his work. But on top of that, we also got a $2,000 utility bill for water. So looking at the situation, one answer is because a technicality in MISTIG is that it has to be public utilities. And so because the EDA privately owns the lighting and the irrigation, they're not part of MISTIG. So one answer would be, and that's one of the things that this board is going to be looking at, or the EDA is going to be looking at, is subscribing to MISTIG. But in the short term, what was strongly suggested during the meeting, and is, I think, very doable, is that in the future, that when the Public Utilities Department receives a MISTIG in that EDA district, is that there is then a phone call from the utility department to the manager, who then contacts our electrical provider. Our Block Electric does most of the utility work in that stretch, and Thielen Turf. And although Thielen Turf cannot tell where all the irrigation goes, because for some crazy reason, there's no map that exists that shows where it is. But what they can identify is the most important part, which is the main trunk line. That's what got severed. And I've worked with irrigation a lot. And basically that main trunk line is a 1-inch pipe that goes from one valve box to the next. And so if you can identify that, then you minimize when something is severed, the problems. Now you're just talking the zone, you're talking a few sprinkler heads. But when you're talking a 1 mile stretch on both sides of the road, now you got problems. And so what we in that board encouraged was that that phone call happens. And it was also mentioned that it should be brought to the Board of Trustees, that it should become policy, is that when the utility department receives a MISTIG in the EDA district, is that phone call is made, whether they make the phone call to our electrical provider and our irrigation provider so that those lines can be identified, or that calls me to management and pass forward as such. But to continually have these types of bills that in the business world would be ridiculed for being, how it's such a simple fix. And what we need from this board is either the policy or the directive that needs to happen so we can stop this from happening. Since I've been on that board, we've had multiple situations where the electrical lines have been cut because very simply the contractors don't know where they're at. So I would leave that up to you folks right now is to discuss is are we willing to make a directive that tells the utility department that we would like this to happen?
May I add something then?
Yes.
I appreciate the update on that, and I don't disagree with what I'm hearing as recommendation from the EDA, but it's not on our agenda. Can we get some additional background information and get this on our next agenda so we can prepare for it? Is that reasonable? I mean, I don't know what your time constraint is. Policy is not going to fix it overnight.
No, but we know that they're going to be going in for a major fix, MDOT, in about 2 years. And so we need to have something in place prior to that. So if we can get something done in the next couple of months, that's what we need to do.
Okay, so I would recommend, because we try not to do things ad hoc if we're able to. I do understand that what you're presenting is definitely worthy of discussion. But it'd be nice to prepare for it better. But I do appreciate bringing it to the board. So can I, you as supervisor have the right to request that to be on the agenda, correct?
Exactly. Yes. And that's what we'll do. As long as I see that there's consensus on the board that that's something that is worthy of discussion, then I'm willing to propose that should be added on our next agenda.
I'm happy to.
Okay. All right.
And
Second
if I
item that
may,
I'm sorry. Yes.
Ben, may I?
Yeah.
The couple things that you need to be aware of, the board, the EDA is an independent body that I've heard the supervisor. I have not heard anything from the EDA requesting any of this in a written communication to the Board of Trustees. We've heard from one member of the EDA board. I have not had a chance yet to go back and review the meeting. I was not there last night. But you start opening the door where the Union Township Board of Trustees is trying to direct the EDA to direct staff, or the EDA through the Board of Trustees directing staff. You need to be careful with that. And so the Board of Trustees may want to wait, because this is normally what you do with your other boards. Planning Commission, remember the Sidewalk Committee, the Sidewalk Committee's relationship with the Board of Trustees. What you normally have done is heard from the other bodies through written communication from them that body has approved the chair of that body to deliver to the Board of Trustees.
So we would need to have that item added on the EDA agenda for our next meeting. And that would be something, Rodney, you would handle, I would assume?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
And the item, Ben, as you know, it's one of your issue, the issue with EDA is misdig. How do you guys get in the loop and be part of misdig? Because and I'll just be straight up, but what you suggest is simple and easy is not necessarily so. We don't know where those lines are, the public works folks, any more than nobody knows where they are, because there's not a map. And they haven't been, they haven't been determined where they exactly are. And we get into our staff needing to try to locate electrical lines owned by the EDA, irrigation lines owned by the EDA and operated by the EDA. Then I have to wonder if we have enough staff to do that.
Well, you misinterpreted what I said. This was a communication between the township to our electrical provider, Block Electric, to mark the conduit lines going from pole to pole. and teal and turf to mark the main trunk lines going from valve box to valve box. So those are typically straight lines between those 2 points. And so that's what the bridge would be, so that this doesn't occur again. But to continually to be dealing with thousands of dollars of repairs on something that is preventable seems to be wholly a waste of township money.
That's why it's an EDA issue.
Yep. So we need to add that on the EDA agenda then for discussion.
Yeah, yeah, that's EDA. This is Board of Trustees right now.
I know it is.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, Lisa just texted me. She's trying to get her computer to restart.
Yeah, she said it just updated yesterday and it's having issues again, so.
The other thing that we did in the EDA is we approved a contract with Gunner's Lawn Care to handle the mowing and trimming on the Pickard Street corridor. So hopefully that, along with the irrigation getting back online, it starts going back to the standards that we expected. So we're waiting for Lisa to move on to consent agenda.
I mean, I imagine we just continue on and hope she gets on, right?
All right, so that would take us to item 9, consent agenda.
I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Motion set and second discussion.
I had an opportunity today to review the accounts and everything looked in order.
Okay. I see we've got our 2 residential water franchise agreements. That's excellent. I'm glad to see those are on the consent agenda. That's a good thing. Be nice to get that taken care of. Any further discussion? Seeing none, take this to vote. In Clerk Cody's absence, I'll take roll call. Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Howe,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
and I also affirm, yes. Consent agenda is approved, and we move to our first item on new business. This is a board approval of the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the general fund and the bill. Excuse me, I'm sorry, that moved to item D. So this would be item A, would be the Board of Trustees requested to approve a bid from Mount Pleasant Heating and Air Conditioning for the replacement of 2 5-ton air conditioning units and 1 heating unit at Union Township Hall.
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit of background on this. The Township Hall has 2 air conditioning units and a furnace, which provide cooling and heating to the, what I'll call the original part of Township Hall. This is primarily the front office area, the lobby, the front restrooms of the hall. We are part of a program with Mount Pleasant and Heating and Cooling where they set these units
Okay, I'll do that.
annually and service them annually. The 2 air conditioning units are currently leaking Freon. One is quite extensive. The other has to be refilled. We're running into problems where we can't cool the front end of the building. The furnace, which services the same area, is the same age as these air conditioning units. They're outdated. We're starting to have trouble getting parts. And if we replace the furnace at the same time we're doing the air conditioning. It's a little cheaper because they're in there getting, you know, in the similar area and getting the work done, one service call. The amount for the 2 AC units plus the furnace installed is $12,129. And it's due to the age of these units. I think I can't remember how old they are, but they're pretty old. So we're recommending that those 3 units that handle air in the front end of the building be replaced. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the bid for Mount Pleasant Heating and Air Conditioning in the amount of $12,129 for the replacement of 2 5-ton air conditioning units and 1 heating unit at the Township Hall.
Support.
Motion, support, discussion. All right, so we take this up for vote. Again, in the absence of Clerk Cody, take roll call. Start with Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Just go ahead, Lisa, and say it. I have Lisa on my phone, so go ahead, Lisa.
Yes.
okay, Clerk Cody says yes, Supervisor Tang, yes. Motion carries. We move on to item B, which was item C, and this is going to be consideration to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the Broadway and Isabella intersection design phase.
So this is a participation agreement in the amount of $30,000. The road commission, in partnering with the township and other area partners, as you know, has plans for enhancing the intersections at Isabella and High Street, Isabella and Broomfield, Isabella and Bluegrass. That's a project currently on the books. We've received funding from the tribe. Township's committed funding, as has MDOT. Once that's done, the only intersection that will not have been done is Broadway in Isabella. And that is because the road commission has been wanting to keep that independent of this other project due to complexity and some, it's an involved intersection. The costs are going to be, I think, considerably higher when compared to the other intersections. So the township and the road commission submitted or applied for a 2% grant for the design phase of these intersection improvements. The total project, the total design contract would be $40,000. The participation agreement is in the amount of $30,000, and it's $30,000 for Union Township. Union Township's $10,000 commitment, and the tribe 2% grant to the township. So now that money is effectively the township. So the tribe contributed 20,000. We'd be contributing 10,000 of our own. That's $30,000 in total to Union Township. And the road commission themselves are in it for $10,000. The timetable of completing the design phase, I really can't speak to. I think that would be more between the road commission and the design firm. But this is to effectuate a 2% grant application where all of this was kind of outlined at the time we made that application. If we have any questions the board may have.
I'll motion to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the Broadway and Isabella Roads intersection design phase, in the amount of $30,000, and authorize our township manager to sign said contracts.
Okay, he must be.
Support.
Right?
A motion, support, discussion.
Yeah, I think I would just like to say that, this dovetails nicely, as Mark had indicated, with the previous grant that we've gotten from the tribe as well, in terms of making the improvements along Isabella Road. As you know, it's become a pretty high concentration of both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. This is one of the, again, the $20,000 from
Okay, yeah, thanks.
$20,000 from the tribe is money that we just received at this last spring 2020 distribution. So again, many thanks and appreciation to the tribe for their continued support of our projects in Union Township.
Let's see, I have a question, this, if I may, directed towards Rodney Nanny. We had an update on the MDOT work is going to be done in a couple of years, and I'm assuming that the ultimate goal here is to have this ready for the 2022 construction season, when they're going to be redoing that stretch of road from the expressway to Mission Street. You had mentioned, Rodney, that the MDOT was at this point considering or had decided they were going to be putting roundabouts in where the expressway enters Pickard. And with that being, I believe, a state-owned road, correct? Pickard all the way through to Mission is state road. What is your feeling as far as what they're considering for that Isabella Road interchange? Do you feel it's going to be a traditional stoplight setup, or do you feel that it's going to be a continuation of the roundabouts?
My understanding from speaking with the MDOT representatives is that they are looking at as you said, at installing roundabouts for the entrance and exit ramps onto US 127 on either side of the interchange. This would actually be they're looking at 2023 or 2024 construction seasons. And as part of that project, they are looking at a pretty much complete rebuild of the road of M20 west from the interchange to Mission Street. There was no discussion of any other roundabouts, though, from beyond that. But at this point, there's not been any design work done. It's very early in the process, and the MDOT representatives have committed that they will have the township involved in that and coordinate with the township with regards to any preferences we may have. So our master plan identifies some preferences. The EDA may have some direction with regards to that for the East EDA district. So there will be time and an opportunity to communicate that to MDOT.
And Ben,
go ahead. Yep.
Ben, just to ensure you get a full answer, I'd like to give Kim Smith an opportunity. Her department is responsible for roads, so she may have some additional information or feel that Rodney has covered it.
No, I think Rodney's covered it. I attend the MDOT meetings that they hold with the city, the township, road commission, and that's the same information that we've got. There's no funding at this time for that project, but the local TSC is hoping that it will get funded in the 2023-24 time frame.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see, Brian, your hand is up still. Are you taking it down?
I brought it down. I put it back up because I realized I left it on. So my apologies. But I wanted to second Trustee Worley's comments and thank again the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe for helping make this possible, because they certainly are contributing a pretty big chunk to this project, and it is sorely needed. So thank you to them.
Yeah.
My hand's down.
It's up still. Oh no, Bill's is up. Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know what's going on here. We're talking, I don't know why we were just talking about Isabella and Pickard Street when we're talking about Broadway and Isabella here. And the reason, I thought they said at the last road commission meeting, Mark, I think they said it was going to take about 4 months for them to go through and get all the information they needed on this. And part of it's easements because they're going to have to widen the road a little bit there for left-hand turn lanes and stuff.
Okay.
So just to answer your question, how long it would take, I'm pretty sure that's what they said. It would take like 4 months.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All right, so we take this up for vote. This is to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the Broadway and Isabella intersection design phase. All in favor? And it'd be obviously Clerk Code, is she back on?
Yes, she's back. She's back.
Oh, there she is. There you are. Okay, bottom right. Okay.
Trustee Lannan?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Trustee Hauk?
Yes.
Trustee Milky?
Yes.
Supervisor Gunny?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All right, so that moves us on to item C, which was D, and this is consider to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the Mary McGuire School Zone signal signage upgrades.
Thank you. And again, this is to execute so that we can execute the participation agreement so we can do some work again on Isabella Road to improve the signal and signage around the school zone surrounding Mary McGuire School. The improvements will include improving the speed limit signs. Right now they're affixed to telephone poles. This will make them standalone. They will have enforcement hours listed on the stop signs. They will have flashing lights around those signs during those enforcement hours. It will also have crosswalk signage on Isabella. The total project is $22,000, almost $700. Again, the funding partners, we applied for and received a 2% grant from the tribe of $15,700. Union Township, as part of that application, had committed $3,000. The Road Commission also committed $3,000 of their funding. And I was pleased to be able to include Mount Pleasant Public School. This is the first time they've partnered with us since I've been here on one of these. And they saw their way to be able to contribute $1,000 to this project. The participation agreement between us and the County Road Commission is $19,669. That would cover our commitment, the 2% money that's now our money, and then the $1,000 for the school. And then at the end of the project, we would just send the school a bill for the $1,000 and get reimbursed. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'd like to make a motion for consideration to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the Mary McGuire School Zone signal and signage upgrades in the amount of $18,669.94 and authorize the township manager to sign said contracts.
Second.
All right, we have
And that
the
was-
motion and we have the support, correct?
Correct.
And then, so, Norm, did you have your hand up still, or?
Yes, I just wanted to say again, this was another contribution that we got, another distribution that we got at the 2% spring 2020 drop. And this was in the amount of that $15,000, almost $700. And again, many thanks to them for the continuation support of a project. These two projects were also piggybacked on another one of us in terms of the Chippewa River walkway. So our total package there was $54,000. So again, you're seeing how the tribal money is really going a long way in making safety, improvement, quality of life. I mean, there's so much that continues to get offered from the tribe to us, and I just appreciate the relationship that we have with the tribe.
Let's see, Trustee Houck.
Yes, I just wanted to say that during the road commission meeting, when this was brought up, someone asked why it costs so much to put signage up. And the reason of it is they're solar powered lights. So that's why they said it costs so much.
Treasurer Rice.
Just real quick about the motion. Did you say consideration?
Oh, I think to approve. Yeah, you're right. That we approve.
Okay.
Leave out consideration.
Okay.
That's what I expected too. So I'll take that clarification.
Right, Phil. So I'm taking out the consideration for your support. Just that it's approved the township participation contract, not consideration for.
And the solar panels will pay for themselves over time.
Correct.
So, yeah, that's a good thing. Nobody gets an electrical bill. All right. Further questions? Seeing none, we take it to vote. Clerk Cody?
Trustee Lannan?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Trustee Houck?
Yes.
Trustee Milky?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning?
Yes.
All
All right. Now to confuse everybody even further, we're going to move back up to what was item A, which is now item D. This is board approval of the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the general fund and the building, zoning, and assessing section of the fee schedule.
Okay, so this paperwork starts on page 35 of your agenda packet. And we're doing a couple things here. One, we're amending the general fund budget. This is traditional. We do this normally at mid-year. I will point out that normally we would be amending all the other budgets at the same time, the water, the sewer, the EDA, west and east, and whatever other funds we need. We were only able to get the general fund done in time for this meeting, so these other funds will be brought before you at your first meeting in August. And then the other thing related to the budget, just to refresh your memory, when you approve your appropriation resolution each year, you approve the original budget for a number of funds. You also approve and set your millage rates. And then in the same resolution, you're also approving a fee schedule to be used. And so we're amending the general fund budget, and we're also recommending an amendment to the fee schedule. The fee schedule amendment is to implement the new extraction ordinance that calls for an extraction permit application fee, I'll call it. And we're recommending that fee be set in the amount of $1,350. And that's based on an evaluation of the activities involved in processing that application. So that's one piece. The next, which will follow with a fair amount of detail that I'll speak to, and there's even more detail in your packet. You have a line item budget amendment worksheet that's several pages long. I'm just going to be hitting the highlights of that memo. We are recommending a budget amendment to revenue that on a net basis reduces revenue $109,000. And this is primarily a result of the effect of COVID-19 on the economy and on the sales tax that the state collects, that then subsequently disperses to the local units of government. We're projecting a decrease in state shared revenue of $100,000 for our FY20. We are also projecting and recommending a decrease in the zoning permit revenue for similar reasons. All this type of activity having been shut down for much of the start of the fiscal year, and activity remaining slow even to this day, decreasing zoning permit revenue by $6,000. We are increasing, this is an increase in revenue. We're having a budget amendment increase of state grants in the amount of $13,000 as a result of Clerk Cody and the finance director, Ms. Teal, working together on submitting a grant application to the state for reimbursement of earlier election expenses that were approved. So we're anticipating additional $13,000 for that. We are also projecting a decrease in baseball tournament field revenue because of reduced, what we anticipated was going to be reduced tournament activity. Interest rates have come way down with, as a result of the Fed action, trying to support the economy. So our interest income, we're projecting to drop $11,000. And we're projecting and recommending a decrease in rent for Jameson Hall in the amount of $3,500 due to our inability to rent the place due to, mainly due to COVID. You add up all the positive and negatives, and it's a decrease of $109,000, part of this budget amendment. But before I go on to expenses, I'll just stop right there and see if you have any questions.
I guess I have one related to what you were just discussing, having to do with revenue sharing. And in your report, you wrote, and I don't want to misquote you, so I'm going to see if I can see it here. Decreased state revenue sharing of $100,000 recognized based on amounts estimated by the state of Michigan. Can you just explain that a little bit so I understand better what the state's doing as far as trying to help local communities and projections of revenue sharing?
Sure. There are, but first there's two pieces to state shared revenue. There's what I call a constitutional component and a legislative or a component subject to annual appropriation. They're both distributed on a formula basis, and they both have their source of revenue is state sales tax, the 6% sales tax. And the state of Michigan then, as part of their budget management, they go through at least 2 revenue sharing conferences each year where they go about the business of projecting their revenue. Those are held in May and October of each year. And when they do that, they look at what their revenue, what revenue they anticipate to bring in from all their variety of sources, income tax, sales tax, what have you. And that's very important to them because that sets the framework for their appropriations to local governments and school districts in terms of, in our case, sales tax. So then the state then provides local units of government with estimates because they then take this $1 billion amount, and through the allocation, we end up with tables by county, by subdivision, unit within the county of what the state is estimating that we are going to receive. They do that based on their fiscal year, which is an October through September exercise. Our fiscal year is January to December. So we have to take their numbers and massage them a little bit based on different fiscal years and payment periods. So I hope that's an answer rather long.
It is. So just a quick follow-up, I think. So what we may find is as we get to the second dispersals of the sharing, revenue sharing, we may end up having to readjust on this potentially again.
That is possible. We have, because we're starting now to get late into the state's fiscal year. Their fiscal year ends in September. We have done some analysis based on what the state is projecting for their next fiscal year, which would also contribute to our revenue this fiscal year, to try to, as best we can, we think that this will be the largest adjustment for this year.
That's helpful.
I would not anticipate that our budget amendment that we would do in December would be anywhere near this.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue? If not, I'll just run through some of the expenditure highlights. We do have an increase in the election department of $16,800 to account for the 3 elections this year. Also increases in supplies and payments to workers, absentee ballots. Again, much of the changes that are going on in the election area this year are being driven by COVID. We've increased the budget there. We've decreased the budget in the assessing department by $44,000 and some change as we balance out the original budget and staffing levels with what we have now with the contractual arrangements. So that's kind of a net there. We are recommending an increase in the legal department budget by a little over $36,000. We did have some action taken earlier tonight that would suggest we will have higher legal expenses. And we are also working on a couple lawsuits that we're a party of related to the extraction ordinance. So we anticipate having to spend some money there. That's why you have that budget amendment. We also have a budget amendment in the Public Works Department of $14,000 to account for the balance of the gravel road expenses. When you approve those contracts, the board was informed that our budget that we had estimated at the beginning of the year was $14,000 short of what we were wanting the road commission to do. We have a reduction in the accounting department budget of a little over $11,000 because we're a little later in the fiscal year of filling that position than we had originally anticipated when we adopted the original budget. Throughout the general fund and throughout all the departments, we're also taking into account the impact from the collective bargaining agreements that were approved last December that were a result of the negotiations that we did not build into the budget at the time of negotiations and at the time of budget adoption, because we weren't sure what those would be at that time in the process. This budget amendment does include the capital outlay that you approved earlier tonight for $28,006 for the 2 air conditioners and the furnace. The net of all the expenditures that are in your memo and in the detail of the report is an increase in appropriations of $93,400. And so when you combine the increase in the appropriation with the decrease in the revenue, the net impact of this budget amendment on projected year-end fund balance is to decrease it by a little over $200,000 compared to what was part of the original adopted budget. So with that, I'll again stop and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Treasurer Rice.
I did have a quick question in regards to some of the actions we took tonight. Do we also need to make an adjustment for those, the legal discussion that we had tonight? Do we need to make a budget amendment for those, or were those kind of included in what's already there?
They're included in what's already here.
Okay.
Trustee Melky.
Thank you, Supervisor Gunning. For those that are looking at our packet in the public, you'll see on the last page of this budget is a deficit, at least a proposed deficit of 481,000 and some change. The original proposed budget was a 278,000 and some change deficit. But it should be made clear that some of that is a result of carryover from projects that were approved but not expended in 2019, and that's also on that same page if you're in the public and looking at this. And that ended up being a net in the black of $667,000 and some change. And I want the public to be fully aware here. We're not being fiscally irresponsible. We end up with the fund balance as proposed, if it works out, of just over $4.3 million, which is about 2 years worth of operating expenses. And so while that initial number of net of revenues and expenditures may be a little scary, I thought I'd paint a picture of what that means in reality.
Further discussion? Trustee Hauk.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020 amended or budget amendment number 1 for the general fund and the building, zoning, and assessing sections of the fee schedule.
Support.
Motion support. Further discussion? Seeing none, we
Tim.
take this up for vote.
Tim has his hand
Oh,
raised.
Tim, okay, looking for the
on
blue.
screen.
So if I don't echo too much. Anyways, Ben, I don't have a blue hand on this tablet that I can find. Kind of following up on what Ryan had to say. A budget is an estimate that we put together. We begin in June before the next fiscal year. And so we make our best opportunity to lay out a budget to determine what our priorities are. But opportunities come. Life goes on and things change. Maybe grant opportunities come that require a match. So having a fluid and needing to adjust the budget is very normal and standard. And as Brian said, we have a very strong fiscal budget at the end of the year proposed. Thank you.
And just to amplify that, if you look at FY19 and 20 together, both years, over the course of 2 years, you've added $200,000, give or take, to fund balance.
In the black.
You've added to fund balance, yes.
All right. Further discussion? Any more hands? Seeing none, we take this to vote. We do have a motion, and this is to approve the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the general fund and the building zoning and assessing fee section of the fee schedule. Trustee, Clerk Cody?
Treasurer Rice,
Sorry.
No.
Oh, I was just telling them that Bill needed to be unmuted.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
Lisa.
we were talking.
oh, you're fine. Treasurer Rice.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
Motion carries. Budget amendment approved. We now go back to item E, and this is to introduce and conduct a first reading for proposed revisions to the Housing Licensing Code ordinance, which regulates rental housing in the township.
So just a little bit of background. We have a pretty proactive rental housing program. I'm going to turn my speakers down just a bit. We have a pretty proactive rental program over the years. We inspect rental units at a minimum annually. The primary objective of this whole program is to ensure that the rental housing stock is safe to the tenants that are going to be renting it. And it accomplishes a couple things. It maintains the housing stock, whether you want to consider it rental or otherwise. It improves, keeps the maintenance of this stock up to a certain standard, which the neighbors in the neighborhoods appreciate. It helps with property value. And again, it's by design to really make sure that the tenants are living in a safe environment. We took a look at the current rental housing code ordinance is 2012-08. The staff, in partnership with the township attorney, proposed a number of amendments to the existing code. Those have all been reviewed by the attorney. Some of them are technical, some of them are more substantive in nature. Some of the existing qualifications or provisions in the code were outdated and no longer applicable, primarily because of changes in state law. And so we're proposing this ordinance amendment so that we can continue with this robust rental housing inspection program. If one assumes that the board introduces it for first reading, then it would be brought forward at your next meeting to consider a second reading, and you'd have an opportunity to consider it for final adoption. I am going to ask Mr. Nanny to speak to just a couple or few of the highlights of the ordinance itself. I did not touch on any of that detail. So if you'd bear with us just a moment longer. Rodney?
Thank you. This as I said, this draft ordinance amendment that you have before you has quite a number of changes in it. Some of the key changes include updating the inspection provisions. There was a change to the state housing law that provided some additional direction for how rental inspections can and should be conducted. And so that language was added to our ordinance. We also updated the provisions related to hearings. We have a Housing Board of Appeals that if there's any dispute that comes up, there's a mechanism to allow that dispute to be heard by a Housing Board of Appeals. Our current ordinance had some inconsistencies in how that operated, and some duplication, and so the provisions related to hearing notices, procedures, and license suspension were all updated for consistency and to eliminate that duplication, and also to provide some additional notice. Some of the language, the hearing, the time frame for notice was very short, 5 days in certain cases, and we wanted to have a consistent standard. So all of the notices were set at the broader 10-day notice. Another key item that was updated was provisions for violations and penalties. The current ordinance, violation of the current ordinance is currently set as a misdemeanor, a criminal offense. This update would move it into the category of a municipal civil infraction. It would not in any way prevent the township from filing a lawsuit or taking other actions available to us to enforce the ordinance, but it would move the initial violation process to a civil infraction, which is easier to work with, and still provides us with the ability to respond to problems that may come up. Those are the key changes you have before you, and I'm just happy to answer any questions as we go along.
Trustee Howe.
Yeah, just a quick one here. Penalties for violations, Rodney. I don't know if everybody else remembers this, but there's a house west of the Township Hall, about a half a mile west of Township Hall, that a guy was using as a rental. Does anybody remember this? And it's not a rental. And we had all this discussion. The guy came in and everything, and he was supposed to not have anybody move back in there. It's a rental. I mean, I think we should go by and inspect that place. I don't know why I said it right now, but it just reminded me of that. The reason I say that is the people that live behind there, she's mentioned to me in the past, probably past couple of months, that she knows they're still using it as a rental. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
I appreciate that, Trustee Howe. I think I know which house you're talking about, and we have a couple issues with that.
Yeah, trash all around it and everything all the time. Yeah. Parties.
Trustee Mielke.
Thank you, Supervisor Gunning. I have one comment and one question. And my comment is related to packet page 64. And I was really pleased to see the definitions for family and functional family. I actually remember being part of this back in 2012. And the amount of time that was spent on those two sections was enormous. And I think we were trying to adapt to a more modern world at that time. And so I'm happy to see that that language is still there by and large. So anyways, thank you for that. And my question related to the Housing Board of Appeals, and forgive my ignorance, but, you know, it talks about it's appointed by the Board of Trustees. Has this board appointed that mechanism or that committee? Is that a standing committee or a board, I should say, at this point?
It is. And in Union Township, and I believe it's in this ordinance, the Construction Board of Appeals is also the Housing Board of Appeals.
Thank you. I missed that and seen that. Is that you laughing at, Ben? I didn't make the connection, and I appreciate that connection.
And so we do have a duly appointed board.
Thank you.
All right, looking for blue hands. Seeing none. Have we had a motion on this, or we need a motion?
I would be happy to do that. I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed revisions to the Housing License Code Ordinance, which regulates rental housing in the township.
Support.
Okay, motion and support, looking for blue hands. Seeing none, we take this up to vote, and our clerk Cody.
Cody, yes. Milky?
Yeah.
Trustee Hauk?
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Lannon?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
All right, first reading of the ordinance passes, and we move to item F in the agenda. And this is going to be Policy Governance 2.0 Global Executive Constraint.
So this is the time of year where you're given the opportunity to review the manager's compliance with Policy Governance 2.0. The title of that is Global Executive Constraint. There's paperwork for this on page 81 of your agenda. The policy states that the township manager shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted public administrative practices and professional ethics. I interpret this policy and indicate that we need to be following all applicable ordinances, statutes, and laws, and that we pay attention to best practices, professional ethics. I have a list of data that I feel demonstrates that we're in compliance with this policy. On the financial side, we have an audit that our outside auditors confirmed where the financial statements were fairly and fully in all material respects presented accurately and fairly. Their audit did not contain with it any corrective action measures that we needed to take. The administration does approve and follow the approved investment and credit card policies that the board has adopted. We do across departments institute best practices as best we can, both in the finance department and in the water and wastewater divisions of the public Services Department, whether they're rules set by Eagle or EPA or the 10 state standard rules, we abide by those. Water, wastewater staff are members of the American Works Association and a similar Water Environment Association. Each of those bodies have codes of conduct and ethics that have to be followed in order to remain in good standing with those bodies. The township more recently is engaged in a water and wastewater cost of service study to, again, make sure our best practices that are out there in these industries are being followed. We had a classification and compensation study done last year to make sure we were following governance policy properly. And we are in the middle of, the township management executive team is in the middle of developing a performance review policy to guide us in instituting a performance review program. So based on that data, I suggest that we are in compliance with the policy and be happy to receive any feedback the board may have in this regard.
Looking for blue hands. Trustee Worley?
I concur with what you said, Mark, that you're in full compliance with the policy. I added a note here that I feel that you operate with the highest integrity, transparency, and full disclosure, and that you adhere to the best practices standards. And as a board member, I appreciate that sincerely.
Looking for more blue hands, or from Trustee Landon, just a waving hand. I'm gonna just look for your waving hand, Tim. Let's see. Clerk Cody was up first.
I agree with what Norm said. I agree with the manager saying. Oh. Sorry. Cats are going crazy there.
A little concerned. That was one of those snakes.
Cobras.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm awake now. Anyway, yeah. Mark is in complete compliance with this. He does. I agree.
Hey, Trustee Milky.
Yes, I'm also in agreement, feeling that we're in compliance with this. And so thanks for all your work, Mark.
And Trustee Landon, do you want to interject? Yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Mark, that I appreciate you putting together a plan for evaluation that you had just mentioned about employee evaluations. That's an area of concern that we've had in the past, and wanted to have that addressed in a concrete manner. Thanks.
Treasurer Rice.
I also, just to piggyback on Tim, I also would like to thank him for that. You know, that's something that we've had on there, and he took care of it. And I also have us in full compliance, or have him in compliance, so.
Any more blue hands? We'll move on to the next item, item G. Policy Governance 2.5, Financial Condition and Activities.
And just before I get there, I do want to thank the board for the positive comments, and also acknowledge that there's a whole organization that's committed to these principles. And so I thank the staff from the executive level all the way down throughout the organization. The next item is the annual review of policy 2.5. I'm sorry, this is a quarterly review of the financial condition and activities. This report's on page 84 of your agenda packet. There's a lot of detail behind this policy. I'm just going to read to the board the top level policy statement, which says that with respect to actual ongoing financial condition and activities, Township management team shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in your ends policies. So basically, what I'm interpreting this to be is that we ought to have a budget that is meant to effectuate your ends policies, that this budget should be rigorously adhered to. When there's shocks to the system, whether intentional or unintentional, that we address them as quickly as possible. Hence the budget amendment activity that you engaged in tonight. That purchases above $10,000 need board approval unless they're of an emergency nature. And then it gets also into some language that's important. You know, the township acts as a agent, if you will, for many other local units of government. We collect taxes on their behalf. We then are required to disperse those in a timely manner. State law says twice a month, every 2 weeks. We do adhere to that very religiously and closely. So that's what I interpret this policy to be about. And the data that's in your report that suggests to me that we are in compliance with the policy is we have not dipped into general fund reserves since I've been here, since I can even find data to suggest that we ever have. All payroll and payroll related taxes are paid timely to both our employees and the various agencies that we owe those monies to, taxes, benefits. All our funds are reconciled monthly, cash accounts are reconciled monthly, annual audits and F-65, which you may not be real familiar with, but it's a very important report that gets submitted to the state annually. All those are filed on time. We had no emergency purchases over $10,000 that I needed to report to the board that I didn't in the second quarter. We do have, as your other governance policy reports have suggested, we have very fluid, we have very strong cash flow position, and we have a very strong cash position in the general fund of something approaching $5 million at the end of June. So with that said, I believe we're in compliance with this policy.
Trustee Milky.
I did feel that we were in compliance, but one of the questions on our form is there an area regarding this policy that you worry about that is not clearly addressed in existing policy? And I've brought this up before, so this isn't knocking.
With that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Was I not heard? Sorry.
Go ahead.
We're done, Mark.
Acknowledged you, Trustee Milky.
So I believe we're in compliance and quite pleased with in general, but I had an issue I've brought up in the past that I would like to consider looking at governance policy to address in the future would be additional capital improvement plans. You know, I know we have capital improvement plans for our utilities, but we don't have that necessarily, at least formalized that I'm aware of, as far as our building infrastructure like Township Hall, general maintenance issues like we saw with the air conditioners and the heater. maybe IT, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's worth exploring, our board exploring, adding that to our governance policy. I don't have wording for that at this point, by the way.
Any further conversation, comments? All right. Seeing none, we move to our last item. It should be item H, policy governance 4.4, monitoring township manager and management team performance.
So you have some paperwork and the policy in its entirety, beginning on page 102 of your agenda packet. This is the opportunity for the board to review itself against policy 4.4, which is your role in monitoring the manager performance. Again, there's a lot of sub-policies to this, I believe, but at the highest level, the policy says that systematic and rigorous monitoring of township manager job performance will be solely against the only expected township manager job outputs, which are organizational accomplishment of board policies on your ends, and that the organizational operations operate within the boundaries established in your board policies on limitations. So there is a handout or that the entire policy is attached to your agenda packet, as well as a question sheet that you can look at to help you in your discussion. I will add before you start that related to this review of policy 4.4 is that at your August 26th meeting, governance policy 4.5 is going to be in front of you, and that is where you actually do the township manager's annual performance review. And so in your packet, I have attached the annual performance review document that you've utilized in the past, and that I'd ask that you complete that so that it can be shared with me at your August 28th board meeting. With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
I guess I need to have a clarification here, because isn't 4.4 the monitoring township manager and management team performance as opposed to just manager? I see. I guess the way I take it, this isn't just a monitoring or review of the manager, it's the complete management team. Or am I wrong?
Right, and I believe that this issue,
I thought we were supposed to take out team or something.
Not on the full policy document. It was in the wording in certain areas, but certainly not, I didn't think 4.4. On the schedule in the back, it still shows manager and management team performance, direct inspection, annual July.
but if you look at your policy document, 4.4 is titled Monitoring Township Manager Performance.
Okay. Well, it's worded differently on the agenda and on the schedule and the action item. I guess we need to maybe, if we did change that, then it needs to be clarified, I guess, and changed in the document.
Yeah, you know, we did go through all that and try to clarify that language. It looks like we might have missed some spots where we were trying to differentiate between manager and management team. I think it's a good catch, Ben.
Mhm.
I mean, because
This is a setup.
about team. I think team is just
Yeah.
in the headers a couple of times instead.
The agenda itself, that was a misstatement on the agenda.
Yeah.
If you look at this in context, what your policy is trying to do is creating guidelines for the board within which to monitor managers' performance. That's the purpose of 4.4. And it comes right before 4.5, which is where you're needing to go through the exercise, the annual exercise of reviewing manager performance. And so the question becomes, well, what are you monitoring or measuring the manager's performance against? And that is articulated in 4.4. So I can update your schedule on the back, the exhibit, or the appendix. I can update the appendix to clear up that confusion. The policy itself uses the township manager in all half a dozen places where it could be using manager or management team. So notwithstanding all that, you may want to just focus on the discussion of the policy.
So we have any blue hands we want to raise here?
When did you want these forms turned in, Mark? Next week?
August 28th meeting.
Okay.
But
You want it,
clear
to
that
do us
when we do
of it first.
4.5.
You want to get it ahead of time.
I don't need it ahead of time.
Oh, no? Okay.
You can if you want. What I'm interested in primarily is that the individual members of the board provide me feedback on my performance, that be done within the context of policy 4.4, which is what you say you're going to monitor it within. And the tool that's provided to you deals with those two parts. It gives you an opportunity to address whether I've been operating within the limitations policies, which is basically all of section 2, and within, and then also is what we're doing effectuating in a positive manner the achievement of your ends, which are articulated in section 1. And I'm just looking for some feedback in those areas so I can help. So it helps me do a better job in helping you all.
Thank you.
Okay, I got trustee Lannon.
You see a blue hand there?
Yep.
All right.
So you got to figure it out. Good for you. This time we'll just get you a blue glove.
Well, I found the more button. Anyways, this is a very important monitoring report from Mark's perspective, probably one of the most important to him. And it's important to us as the board. This is how we evaluate Mark's performance. And it also really makes us reflect on, like Brian brought forward, the point of capital improvement things. That's the type of thing we look at that may be missing in our monitoring reports and language, and need to work to get that in there. So we can consider the manager's performance against what our ends are. So this is really important for both management and the township. I'm going to stop there because there's an echoing going and just not conducive to me talking. Thanks.
Point taken, though.
Any more blue hands?
Tim needs to put his hand down.
Now that he knows.
There you go. So
I guess if I may, real quick, I'm sorry.
Yep. Mhm.
So I guess a question to our manager. I looked through the evaluation tool, and I guess so that it's a usable tool or feedback to you, Mark. I hope you would take into account the different people grade it in different perspectives, right? I guess I consider myself a pretty tough grader. I think you're doing a great job. That might just mean you meet expectations. And so I would hate for just my scores alone for you to misinterpret how I interpret it. Does that make sense, Mark?
It does.
Helpful to annotate why I might have scored a certain way? What's best kind of feedback for you as far as learning?
I think the comments are always helpful.
Okay.
And there are some spots there for written comments.
Yeah, and I saw that at the end.
What does the manager do well? What could the manager improve on? I don't want this to be too onerous. Because I know, all your time's important. So whatever you feel is, whatever any board member feels like saying, I encourage you to say it. And I know there's been debate in the past about, that these are being done in open session. I'm the one that gets to decide that. I'm very comfortable with the open session. I'm more than comfortable hearing constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it. I'm okay with everybody hearing it. Public, each other, whatever.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, seeing more blue hands, we move to item 11. Extended public comment. I think we lost our whole audience at some point. This is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is an opportunity for comments only. Questions the board will not be answered at this time. Seeing no citizens present, we move from item 11 to item 12, manager's comments. Mark.
Thank you. Just a couple, as I had indicated last week, consideration of closing Township Hall to what I call regular public business on election day. That is how we are going to be proceeding. There will be notices being put out front of the building, website, what have you. But the Township Hall doors will be locked to the public from the outside. It's going to be used as an exit door for the voters that are coming in on the south side of the building. We are looking at trying to still hold a cleanup day yet this year. We're thinking October might work. We are not able to do it at CMU, but we are talking with the county, we might be able to do it at the Commission on Aging. So we're working towards still trying to have that event yet this year. A reminder that the cost of service study initial presentation will be tomorrow night. I distributed the reports on that, none of which are particularly lengthy. I think the longest one's maybe 12 pages, the shortest is 4. But don't get too worked up about that. The objective tomorrow night is to just simply begin to present information to you. There's no decisions are being asked of you. We will have additional one-on-one meetings or in-person meetings with the consultant and the board, I hope in September. The consultant's firm is on a travel lockdown. They're not allowed to travel right now until September. So the objective tomorrow night is simply to begin to acquaint you with the information. So I look forward to that. And then, and this is somewhat related to the budget amendment, but not directly. We amended the budget to reduce tournament fees in anticipation of having fewer tournaments this year. Well, as it's turned out, we've done some work, and you're aware of it, to try to allow baseball to still be played at the facilities. So we've had some inquiries on tournaments, and I'd like to offer them, we usually charge $40 a team for tournament play, and we're considering administratively to waive that fee, thinking those, the Mount Pleasant Little League, the various little leagues, and the drillers and the sponsors of those tournaments, they're kind of short of cash too, probably. The board's asked about what we can do for folks related to COVID. So if we did waive those fees, we would anticipate that it would be worth about $2,500 that we would lose in revenue. The budget amendment we put in place tonight already accounted for about 1,000 of that, so maybe the rest of it goes away. But unless the board objects, that's kind of the path I'd be going down.
Piggyback on that, Mark, what kind of liability does the township have when they have a tournament on our parks, and say, for instance, you've got a family member that's sitting by somebody else that is COVID positive, and you end up infecting 2 or 3 people, say, and they're able to obviously bring it back to that event through contact tracing. Do we have liability?
We have tried as best we can to limit that liability. We have a use, and this is a completely separate agreement. We developed it just in the last, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. An agreement that all these tournament sponsors have to sign that is acknowledging and referencing an attached document that says, the title something along the lines, and I don't have in front of me, the safe plan. And we're basically having them attest to, one, they understand what the executive orders are, that they are going to abide by those, that they are assigning a person responsible for the tournament to make sure they're, as the host, that they're kind of being responsible for communicating these things to their teams and players. we have a statement in there that says, as long as you sign this, our hands are clear. You know, we're assuming no liability. We've had we've done that in conjunction with the city, so we're both using the same document. Because often the same tournament host is using fields at both places. And it gets into, you know, the 100-person limit with it, you know, in an outdoor setting. So we've done what we think we can. And so when you ask me, you know, we have any liability, I say we've done what we can to mitigate that assumption of risk, but, you know, the attorney will tell you $25, somebody can file a lawsuit. And I can give you a copy of that if you'd like it.
No, I've just heard like in some of those tournaments, they've eliminated the grandstand seating by the dugouts, and you had parents in the outfield area separating them from sitting together in the stands at some facilities, and I wasn't sure if we were doing the same type of thing.
We're trying to stay away from enforcement, trying to lay that responsibility onto the tournament host, and at the same time limiting to the best we can our legal liability.
All right. Any more questions for Mark at all? All right. Seeing none, we move to final board member comments. Let's see. Let's start with Trustee Milkey.
I am good tonight. Thank you much.
Treasurer Rice.
No.
Trustee Hauk.
Back of my eyes are talking to me. I got nothing.
You can see your eyeballs. Trustee Worley.
I'll make it quick since everyone is getting tired and wants to end this. I just wanted to follow up to what I spoke about in our last meeting regarding the whole COVID situation that we have on our hands. First of all, I want to give kudos to our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, for taking the courageous step that she did to implement a mandatory mask mandate in public spaces. I think it was needed, probably long overdue. And I also want to give compliments to the Mount Pleasant City Commission for doing their resolution in support of Governor Whitmer's stance in terms of the mandatory masking. In an article that in the Morning Sun, Nancy Ridley was quoted as saying, wearing a face covering is a sign of respect for others. And I think that's something we need to all keep in mind. I said in the last time I spoke, I said this need not and should not be a political issue. National public health crisis, and I think it's also a national security crisis if it continues to grow out of hand. You know, I recognize that we have, 50 individual states, but we only have one United States. And we have to work together, and I think the efforts have to be in a coordinated effort nationwide, and it has to be based on scientific data. So in order for us to get out of this crisis for once and for all, I think it's very patriotic to protect each other, and there's simple remedies in which to do that. In previous wars, in previous crises, Americans have been asked to make sacrifices, and we've always adhered. We've come together as one. It isn't red, blue, purple, whatever. We come together as one unit of people, the one United States. And I think that this is another example where we should all be willing to make a sacrifice. It may be goofy, it may be inconvenient, it may be a pain in the neck, to walk around with a face mask. But if that's going to protect you and the lives of others, it's something we all should be obliged to doing. And, eventually, I think if we do those types of things, we can return to our economic stability. These aren't mutually exclusive issues, open the economy or wearing face masks and protecting the healthcare of people. They're together. They're one issue. And I think that to return to economic stability, and restore some normalcy, we have to all be mindful of keeping one another safe. So again, I'm not trying to preach to folks here. It's just that this is really strong for me. I just see the numbers as they're going through and ripping through our nation, how it's dividing us as people, and it masking becomes a political issue. It's nonsense. We need to really think about the health of each other and about the well-being of our country. So just wanted to say that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Tim?
No comments at this time.
Or Cody?
No comment.
I'm gonna make mine very short, shorter than Norm's probably. I'm just gonna say that, I concur with what Trustee Worley is stating. I have a business where, we're in our peak season right now, and we have, probably each week serve over 1,000 people. We've had a mandatory mask rule since May 1st when we were able to open up. We are considered one of the safest places to go in Mount Pleasant. And I'm proud to say that our residents, we haven't had any trouble. Initially you had a little resistance, but once people understood what was expected of them, when they came to our facility, then they adhered. I haven't had a soul try to walk into my business in well over 2 weeks without a face covering. And these people come from all different walks of life, Republican, Democrat, Independent, agnostic, whatever. They all have adhered to it because they understand that's what's expected. And so I think that, we're starting to see the tide turn, Norm. What I've seen is that I think people are beginning to understand what's expected and the significance of what they're doing and the mutual respect that you're supposed to show for your fellow human being. And by wearing a face covering and maintaining social distancing and trying to stay away from clusters of human beings. So thank you for making your statement. At this point in time, we need to have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Adjourn. All agree? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow night.
Order review.